Well, anyways, all right. So we get the lathe loaded. Had to take the legs off to do it. But got it in, no disasters. All right, everybody, it's the very next day. Didn't have time to unload anything yesterday when I got home with the lathe. So today we're gonna unload it, and we're gonna try and get as much of it right into the basement as possible, because this lathe is gonna be easier to move. Even though it's a 14-inch, it's gonna be easier to move than the Hendey 12, because it's not a gearhead lathe, and I've got it broken down into quite a few individual components. I've got to get the legs off. There's no chip pan. The chip pan on the Hendey, on my Hendey gearhead, the chip pan alone weighs about 300 pounds. So anyways, so here it is. So this is the lathe, and can't really see too much of it here in the truck. I got everything kind of piled in here. But for those of you who have been watching my Hendey lathe series, you'll notice that this lathe right here has basically the same quick change gearbox, which I think may have been made by Norton Company, because I thought I remember seeing a reference about history, Hendey history. So anyways, the gearbox looks very similar to the Hendey gearbox. This plate right here for the threading is almost identical to the to my Hendey plate, except that this says Vernon Machine Company, Worcester, Massachusetts, which is supposedly who makes this lathe. The other evidence about why this is a Vernon machine lathe is clear right there on the legs. So, well, it's coming out. Not enough sunlight out here, it's hard to see the screen, but basically we've got the legs clearly embossed Vernon Machine Company. Alright, but here's the mystery. This is what caught my eye about this lathe when I saw it advertised. Look at the taper jig. It's virtually a carbon copy of the tapering jig on my 12-inch Hendey, right down to the shape of the handle, the shape of this part here, the fact that it's got a place for the rod to go in that runs into here, this piece right here. I mean, this is, it's an exact duplicate of the Hendey tapering jig. Look at the compound. Compound also looks just like the Hendey. The apron. Look at the apron. Just like the Hendey. Same exact, almost same exact setup. Bigger, because I think it's, you know, because it's the 14-inch. If I had a 14-inch Hendey cone head, I got a feeling it would be virtually identical to this. Got the shift to change direction on there also. So again, you know, some weird stuff going on here. Half nut lever. Everything's same exact layout as the Hendey. Now, the cone head spindle section here doesn't look like a Hendey. But then again, what it does look like is, it doesn't look like a Hendey tie bar. But maybe this is what the earlier 14-inch cone head Hendeys looked like. So I don't know, because I think I've seen some pictures of some 14-inch cone heads that had this little shift lever on the side here that disengages the change gears from the spindle. I want to say I think that that's very reminiscent of that. You can go around the other side and show you the back gear. Back gear is pretty atypical of what I've seen on a lot of back gears for lathes around this vintage. So that's very interesting. Tailstock kind of looks like a Hendey tailstock too. Alright, so let's get to work unloading this. Alright, I managed to get the truck. What I did was I raised the loader, and then I kind of drove the truck underneath it, centered it pretty much. It's a little bit, could be over this way a little bit more, but that'll be okay. I'll lift it slow and the lathe will swing up towards this way, which is fine. I've got room in the bed for that to happen. So now I gotta hook up and I know it's a sin, but I'm going to actually hook around that spindle as part of my lifting. I'm going to try and, I got it lined up so I should be able to get this center support area right in here, this webbing, really sturdy. I'm going to hook onto that, but then I'm going to need, because most of the weight's concentrated down this end, I'm going to need another lift point over here. And right now the best thing I could see is to get onto, so I'm not going to be able to get a strap underneath the bed. So I'm going to try and get something under the spindle here. Alright guys, here's the rig. I got my sling, which has 6,800 pound capacity, full capacity. It's diminished when you have it at an angle, but that's a very slight angle, so that should be plenty strong enough. I've got my chain running through that, and then I've got one of my tie down straps. I got that rigged around part of the reel. I couldn't get it underneath the other part there. And then that's got a weak point because I damaged it right there. It's got a tear in it. So I'm going to take a second here just to talk about some of the stuff that came with the Vernon lathe, because it's basically in that box and there and in that box right there. And since some of the stuff is heavy, I'm going to move it off to the side, and don't plan on bringing it out again until I've got the Vernon set up. Figured now's the time to talk about it. This is the tailstock, obviously, off of the lathe, and one of the things I wanted to point out on this was this handle right here. This handle is a spitting image of the handle on the Hendey's tailstock, or is it the, I think maybe the tapering jig has an adjustment handle like that too, or a lockdown handle, but you know, maybe that was common back then, but that's just one of the many very Hendey things on this Vernon lathe that I'm going to be showing. You may, I don't know if you noticed, but it's bent. That is one casualty in the move. Had the lathe in the back of the pickup truck to drive it home, and when we loaded in, didn't notice that it was actually pushing on this, or it shifted, and yeah, let's just say it shifted while I was driving so that I don't look like a complete idiot. But the stud that screws onto it is now bent, so I'm gonna have to address that at some point. Lots of times people will tell you that when you're buying a used lathe, how much tooling and accessories comes with it can make a big difference. A lot of people will end up spending as much for the extra tooling and accessories as what they would pay for the lathe, especially on these bigger monsters where people are just scrapping them. But I lucked out on this. This was another thing that made me really want to buy this Vernon. Got a 4-jaw chuck here. It looks to be about a 10 or 12 incher. Of course, the Vernon's a 14-inch swing. And then also got this big one here. This is a, actually this says it's a 15, but that can't be a 15-inch. Because if it is, then the Vernon's a 16-inch lathe. Oh, 3-jaw. Nice big 3-jaw chuck. Okay. No faceplate. He said he had one, but he couldn't find it, and he was moving, so I'm never going to see that guy again. In here we've got, well, of course this is the cover off the end of the change gears that I took off already. Study rest. Also very reminiscent of the study rest that I have for my Hendey. Just larger version of it, but study rest. 4-way tool post. Too dirty. Got some rust on it, so I haven't really looked at it closely for a maker's name or anything like that yet, but you know, I don't even know if I'm going to bother keeping that. That might be just a flea bay item. This hardware and stuff is when I disassembled the lathe to bring it home. Did a quick and dirty disassembly there right in the garage of the guy's house, and just thought I'd point this out. Doesn't this look reminiscent? This is almost identical to the lever assembly inside the Hendey, as is this. This goes through the leg and engages this piece, because the Vernon has a lever to the right of the apron to change direction of the feed, just like the Hendey. Now, he had this homemade T-wrench with it, and the funny thing is, it doesn't fit. It doesn't really fit. That it's too sloppy for that one, and it's too large for the 4-jar over there. So I don't know what this fits actually. He included this toolbox with everything that's in it, and this is actually not a bad little galvanized steel box, except for the pain in the ass feature that it has no handles on it at all, but it has a padlock clasp, so go figure, so you can lock it up.